today I will give the introduction about the programming language Java. See, Java is one of the programming language. More than 200 programming languages is there. Java is one of the programming language. So initially, Java is introduced initially we are using C and C++ programming language. And this in the C and C++ programming language, we are facing some of difficulties. To overcome the difficulties and introduced in the new programming language, Java. And the Java programming language version 1. From the version 1, then currently the latest version is the 1.21 or Java 21 is the latest version. And each and every version, it's introduced many of the features. Each and every versions, it's introduced many of the features. See, if you want to install in Java, you should install Java 8 or above. So any of the version you can download and install. If you want to install in Java, we have you should download and install in Java 8 or 1.8 or above any one of the version you can download and install. The latest version is Java 21. So initially Java is introduced from 1.1 version. From 1.1 to 1.4, the coding style is something it's different. It's a basic level of codings we are using, and the code length is also increased. Is many of the concept as a developer, we write it. And 1.5 version, it's many of the features are it's introduced 1.5 version. So 1.5 and 1.8, these two versions are tiger versions. It's a lot of features are it's introduced. 1.5 and 1.8 are Java 5 or Java 8. Java 1.5 or Java 1.8 or Java 5 or Java 8. It's a tiger version. Many of the features are it's introduced. See, if you want to download and install, you should download and install 1.8 or above any one of the version. 1.5 version onwards, we introduced in the garbage collection, generic collection, even main method. So before 1.5 version, main method it's not mandatory. Without main method, we can run and execute the code without a main method. Without main method, we can run and execute the code by using the static block. 1.5 version. So that is 1.5 version. 1.5 to 1.7, it's a coding style is something it's different. From 1.8 version onwards, it's a lot of features are it's introduced. A stream API and new packages it's introduced. Before 1.8 version, 13 predefined packages is there. From 1.8 version onwards, one new package is introduced. So the new package is introduced. So that is date and time package. And also some other predefined methods. It's a many of the few predefined methods is there. So we can simplify the code. So 1.8 version, it's mandatory. Even if you want to move the next level, the core Java, the next level is framework, right? So when you move to framework, 1.8 is must. The basic version is 1.8 version. So if you want to move in the next level of coding, so for example, if you want to upgrade your knowledge from the core Java to framework, 1.8 version is must. It's a basic one. 1.8 is the basic one. In normal C and C++ programming language, we are using in normal C language, we are using pointers concept and memory allocation. So these are the concept is there. This C language, it's not a secure one because of directly we can access the memories by using the pointers. So that is why that's not a secure one. So after that, it's introduced in the C++ programming language. In the C++ programming language, it's introduced in the OOPS concept. What is OOPS concept? So generally, two different types of programming languages is there: object-based programming language and object-oriented programming language. Object-based programming language and object-oriented programming language. The object-based programming languages are JavaScript, VB script. The scripting level programmings are object-based programming language. But in Java, Java is object-oriented programming language. Java is object-oriented programming language. Why? Why? Because of, if you want to access the variable, if you want to access the method, if you want to access the constructor, if you want to access the instance block, you should create the object. If you want to access the static block, you should create the object. By using that object only, you can access the elements. So that is why Java, it's called object-oriented programming language, and initially the OOPS concept is introduced from C++ programming language. Initially, this OOPS concept is introduced from C++ programming language. So initially, it's introduced C programming language. After that, it's introduced C++ programming language. In the C++ programming language, it's introduced in the OOPS concept. And the C and C++ programming language, we can't communicate with the front end. We can't communicate with the UI part. So we can't implement in the web application. But in Java, we can communicate with the front end. We can communicate with the back end, and we can implement in the web application. We can implement our coding in web application. So we can implement the web application code. So that is the main feature of Java programming language. So C and C++ programming language can't communicate with the front end and also can't implement in the web applications. But in Java, it's communicate with the front end and we can implement in the web applications. So web application, if you want to use, you should use the servers. So servers are playing main role in the web applications. So mainly we are using Tomcat server, Java server, ClassPass server, IBM server. It's many of the servers is that we can use any one of the servers to implement. We can run the programs. So if you want to implement in the web application, you should use the server. So server is must. See why we are using Java programming language, because of we can implement in the web application. After that, we can develop our Android related applications. So the same web application, we can convert it to mobile application also. So that is why mostly we are using Java programming language. Java programming language, C and C++ programming language can't communicate with the front end and also can't implement the web applications. But in Java, we can communicate with the front end and we can implement in the web applications. So that is why we are using Java. See, Java, initially we are learn in core Java. So the core Java, we have to learn only the concept, not the project. So not the implement the application. We are not to create the application. We can't implement the, we are not to implement the application. In initially core Java, we have to learn only concept. So what is oops concept? What is exception handling concept? What is a string concept? String concept inside, what is immutable? So what is mutable? And what is collection concept? What is list set and the map interface? So the list interface which contains the implementation classes, set interface which contains the implementation classes, and the map interface which contains the implementation classes. So we are using arrays concept and the collection concept. What is difference between these two, array and the collections? Why Java using collection concept? So collection concept is very important one. List set and the map interface. It's very, very important one. So some C and C++ programming language, we are using arrays concept. But in Java, we are not using arrays. Arrays, it's possible to use, but mostly we are using collection concept. Why we are using collection instead of array? So what are the features are it's involved in the collection concept? So collection is very, very important topic. And the next one is Java 8 futures. So the stream API, how we implement the logic by using the predefined methods. So stream API, date and time method, and interface inside we can implement the static method and the default methods. Why the static and the default method only it allows? So these are the important topics is there in this Java 8. So Java 8 coding style is it's a different. So we can totally it's a simplify your logic by using the Java 8. So before Java 8, we have to write up programs in very lengthy code and we have to write a step-by-step programs. But in Java, the stream API concept to minimize the code length and concept-wise also, we can use the predefined methods. So these are the predefined concept to simplify the code. But as a developer, we should know. So what are the predefined methods is there in Java 8? So what are the predefined methods is there? So where we are, so which situation we can use the predefined methods? So as a developer, we should know. And also threat concept. So the threat concept, so mostly the threat concept in program wise, it's a real time we are not using, but we should know how we create a threat, how many ways we create a threat. So threat, how we give the priorities. So how we have to assign the threat. So how we have to get a predefined methods, how we are using the predefined methods. So these are the concept we should know. And also the file handling concept, input, file input and file output. And also the class inside another one class we can create and access, but method inside another one method we can't create and access. But a class inside another one class we can create and access. So how we create a class inside another one class, that is nested class. So how we access the class. So these are the concept which is included in the core Java. In this core Java, we are learning concept, only concept. After that, we are slowly move to the J2EE. So Java Enterprise Edition. So that is web application. So in this web application, you can concentrate what is servlet, what is servers, and how we communicate with the database. Java code, how to communicate with the database. So what is database? Why we are using database? How to communicate with the database? How we store the values? How to retrieve the values? How we update the values? How to delete the values? So these are the things we are learning in J2EE. So this J2EE, it's not important one. Why? Because of this J2EE full and full, it's a old concept. So we move to the next level, a Spring Boot concept. We move to the next level, a Spring Boot concept. This Spring Boot concept, it's a totally, it's a removed the configurations. So the configurations, and so many of the configurations is there in this J2EE concept. We are not using the configurations in this Spring Boot concept. Then we can implement the web application without the configurations, and we can simplify the code. How yeah, and also the Spring Boot framework, it's communicate with the front end and front end. Any front end, it's like a JSP, JSF, Angular or React. So any one framework we can communicate, and also backend database we can also communicate. So any database, so MySQL database, Oracle database, TP2 database, S2 database. So any database we can use it. So how to communicate with the database? If you want to communicate with the database, we should configure. How to configure? So these are the things we are learning in Spring Boot framework. So when we go to the Spring Boot framework, you can implement your project. So how to communicate with the front end, how we give the input, how we retrieve the values, so how we retrieve the list of values. List of values means so more than one value. So how we can retrieve, how we give the input, how we give the bulk input, how we get a single value based on the ID, how we get a list of values, how to update the values, how to delete the values. So these are the concept which is included in the Spring Boot framework. And also the Spring Boot framework, we are learning Spring Security, authentication, authorization, actuator, Swagger, and annotations. So these are the concept we are learning in Spring Boot framework. So this is the structure of the full stack in only in Java. Only Java we are learning. These are the things. Only core Java. After that J2EE. So J2EE it's not important one. Then next level we move to the Spring Boot framework. Spring Boot is very important. Very important concept. Very important one. So if you want to get the job, if you want to get the job opportunities, Spring Boot concept is must. Okay. So that is Java. So Java is one of the programming language. Initially, it's introduced C and C++ programming language. After that, it introduced Java programming language. C and C++ programming language. We can't implement a web application, and also we can't communicate with the front end. It's like a JSP, JSF, Angular, or React. But in Java, we can communicate with the front end and we can develop our web application. So the first one is Java. So the Java, if you want to install, minimum requirement is Java 8 or above any one of the version. Java 5 and Java 8 or Java 1.5 or 1.8 is the Tiger version. Java 5 or Java 8 or Java 1.5 or 1.8 is the Tiger version. If you want to download and install means, so you should use Java 8 or above any one of the version. And also we are using this Eclipse ID and IntelliJ ID. So what is this ID? So the ID which is used to develop our programs. So which is used to implement our programs. So you have to learn Java. If you want to learn Java, you have to download Java and you should need some of workspace, right? So you need some of workspace to develop your, you have to write a code and you need to execute the code and you can get the result. So the workspace it's provided in this IDs. So Eclipse ID, IntelliJ ID. Some of times you can use it to Visual Studio. It's a supported and NetBeans is done. And also sometimes we are using Notepad++. Notepad++ inside we write the programs and execute the code. Notepad++ inside we can write the programs and we can execute the codings. So that is also it's possible. The command prompt we can execute. So that is ID. You can download and install any one ID, Eclipse ID or IntelliJ ID. So any one of the, or otherwise you can use both. So that is supported. The Java programming language, it's a supported Eclipse and IntelliJ. So both of the IDs, it's a supported. Not only these two IDs, some other IDs also it's available. Visual Studio also. But which one is better means it's Eclipse and IntelliJ. So anyone you can use it. Eclipse and Eclipse or IntelliJ. Anyone you can use it. You can download and install. So regarding this download and install, I will guide you. Tomorrow I will share you the link. By using that link, you can download and install. You can follow the steps and download and install in Java and Eclipse. Both you can download and install. It. So Java, it's a object-oriented programming language. So this object-oriented programming language, which contains, these are the concept. So these are the concept which is included in the OOPS concept. OOPS concept is a very basic concept. Oops is very basic concept. See, just I will explain you in theory wise. So in this six concept, I will initially today just I will explain you what is what. Then next class onwards, I will explain you the class means, what is class, how to create a class, what is object, and a class under object. So what are the elements is there, class under class inside, what are the elements we can use it, variables, methods, constructor, instance block, and static block, and what is variable. Three types of variable: local variable, instance variable, and static variable. How we create a variable, how we access the variable. So what are the rules we have to follow, and what is methods? So how many types of methods is there? How we have to create and access the method, and what is constructor, how we create and access the constructor. What is instance block, how we create and access the instance block. What is the static block, how we create and access the static block. And what are the characteristics, so each and every elements, what are the characteristics is there. So we have to analyze each and every topics. Minimum it takes 1 hour time duration. I think variable it takes more than 2 hours. Methods concept it takes more than 2 hours. And the constructor, instance blocks, and the static block, each and every concept it takes minimum 1 hour time duration. Okay. So each and every day, so we have to work out the examples, the parallel. You have to prepare the interviews, and also you can concentrate the examples also. You have to practice in your system. The same process, the same way you have to practice the, so the same day you practice the same example also. So that is, it's useful for you. OOPS concept, which contains, these are the six concepts: class, object, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. So what is class? Class is a logical entity which contains only logics. What is class? Class is a logical entity which contains only logics. So if I want to implement my logic, what's my logic? Just I want to print on hello world example or welcome. So that is my logic. If I want to implement my logic, should create a class. So without a class, we can't implement our logic. So class is must. What is class? Class is a logical entity which contains only logics. What is object? Object is a physical entity which contains only memory. What is object? Object is a physical entity which contains only memory. So during the object creation, memory is allocated. So during the object creation, memory is allocated. How many ways we create an object? So we can create an object in different ways using instance factory method, static factory method, pattern factory method, a new instance method, a clone method, a deserialization method. So these are the different ways of object creation is there. One of the recommended ways for using new keyword object creation. In this new keyword object creation, two ways is there: named approach and a nameless approach. So mostly in a real-time project, we are using nameless approach object creation. So during the object creation, memory is allocated. And inheritance. So what is inheritance? So if you want to use only one class, the single class, if you want to use, then the inheritance concept, it's not required. If you want to use more than one class, if you want to implement your logic, you have to created more than one class, then we should use inheritance concept. What is inheritance? Inheritance is a mechanism which one object acquires all the properties and behavior of another object of another class, or parent object of a parent class. So what is the meaning of this? We can create more than one class. We can access the parent class by using the child class. We can access the parent class elements by using the child class object. We create a child class object. By using the child class object, we can access the parent class elements. So the elements means variables, methods, constructor, instance block, and static block. So when we are using more than one class, so that situation we are using inheritance concept. In this inheritance concept, if you want to use, you should use the extends keyword. Child class extends parent class, or child class extends parent class. So that is must. So generally, so the types of inheritance is what is inheritance? Inheritance is a mechanism which one object acquires all the properties and behavior of another object of another class, or parent object of a parent class. Single inheritance. The types of inheritance is there: single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, hybrid inheritance. So these are the different types of inheritance is there. The multiple inheritance concept we can't achieve in class level. In class level, we can't use multiple inheritance, but in interface, we can use the multiple inheritance. Why class level we can't use? Why interface level we can use? I will explain you in the inheritance concept with examples. Next one is polymorphism. So what is polymorphism? So in generally, the definition of polymorphism means, so polymorphism is a Greek term. Poly means many, morphism means form. So one task, many forms. So that is polymorphism. Two types of polymorphism is there: compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. Compile time polymorphism, it's also called as overloading. Runtime polymorphism, it's also called as overriding. Compile time polymorphism, it's also called as a static binding or early binding. Runtime polymorphism, it's also called as dynamic binding or late binding. So one of the important interview questions is there in this polymorphism concept. So what is difference between overloading and overriding? So the overloading, three different types of overloading is there: method overloading, constructor overloading, and operator overloading. What is overloading? What is difference between overloading and overriding? And in this inheritance concept, what multiple inheritance concept, why we can't use in class level, how we achieve in interface level. So that is one of the important interview question in this inheritance concept. And the polymorphism concept, what is difference between overloading and overriding? And the next one is abstraction. What is abstraction? Abstraction is a concept. Abstraction means hides the implementation, shows only functionality to the user. So that is abstraction. Hides the implementation, shows only functionality to the user. As a developer, I have to use the functionalities, but internally what is happening, what is the process, I don't know. So that is abstraction. We can implement the abstraction concept two ways. So one is abstract class and another one is interface. What is abstract class? What is interface? So what is difference between abstract class and the interface? So that is one of the important interview question. What is difference between abstract class and the interface? Abstract class inside, we can't create a abstract class. Inside it allows method declaration and implementation. The class which contains abstract modifier, it's called abstract class. A class which contains abstract modifier, that is called abstract class. The abstract class, if I created, means abstract class inside we can create abstract method and non-abstract method. So that means method declaration and method implementation we can create and we can access. So method declaration and method implementation, both are it's allowed. So that is why it's called partial abstraction. And next one is interface. What is interface? Interface is also a similar to a class. Interface is a class. But in interface, if I create an interface, it allowed only method declaration. Implementation, it's not allowed. So that is why it's called fully abstraction. What is partial abstraction? Abstract class. It's called partial abstraction. Why? Why? Because of abstract class inside, we can create method declaration and the implementation. What is interface? Interface, it's also a class. It's a blueprint of a class that you have static, constant, and abstract methods. that can be used to achieve fully abstraction and multiple inheritance. What is interface? Interface is a blueprint of a class that have a static constant and abstract methods that can be used to achieve fully abstraction and multiple inheritance. The interface inside, we can achieve the multiple inheritance concept, and also interface inside, it allows only method declaration. Implementation, it's not allowed. So that is why it's called fully abstraction. And encapsulation. What is encapsulation? Wraps and data into a single unit. So that is why it's called encapsulation. Wraps code and data into a single unit. So just wait a minute. Yeah. So that is encapsulation. Wraps code and data into a single unit. So that is encapsulation. So the encapsulation, we create a getter and a setter. So what is getter and what is setter? Why we create getter and setters? I will explain you when we go to the encapsulation concept. So this is the simple theory of OOPS concept. Okay. So after that, when we go to the each and every topic, we will see one by one. So what is variables and what are the types of variables? So what is data types? How many ways we create a variables? Types of variables. So what is local variable? What is instance variable? What is a static variable? And what is difference between these three variables? And how we give the input to the scanner input. So we will see one by one. So after that, we move to the next concept, methods concept. Okay, so the methods concept, then the constructor, then in instance block, then the static block. So these are the ways we move the concept one by one in deeply. Okay. Any doubts? Okay. Then fine. Tomorrow we will continue the class. Okay.
Yeah.